All right, I think we are ready to begin with the session for today. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone to our session on equality of educational opportunity. Today, we have with us a very special guest who will be discussing the inequalities that exist within the. All right, I think we are ready to begin with the session for today. First of all, I would like to welcome everyone to our session on equality of educational opportunity. Who will be All right, before we begin, to set a little bit of context, let me tell you quickly a little bit about Oxan Equality Clubs. Oxfam India and YLAC have been working together to set up equality clubs in school across India to sensitize students about the different kinds of inequalities that exist in society. The aim is to raise consciousness, help build empathy and appreciation of one's own privilege, and inspire students to take action. The club adopts an experiential learning approach to help students explore challenging societal problems, break stereotypes, and equip them with the skills necessary to take on leadership to rewrite societal norms. The club year has been divided into 4 quarters, with each quarter focusing on a specific theme. For the first quarter, we have gender equality. The second quarter talks about economic equality. The third quarter talks about diversity and inclusion. And quarter four finally talks about climate justice. This year, I'm very happy to announce that we have partnered with around 40 schools from across India. This webinar is being conducted as part of our first quarter, which explores gender equality. Today's speaker is Shaheen Mistri, the CEO and founder of Teach for India. Shaheen grew up in 5 countries around the world and returned to India when she was 18 to start Akansha. For 17 years, she worked with teachers and students, building Akansha to provide children from low-income communities the kind of education that would maximize their greatest potential. Today, Akansha serves 9,300 children through the school project and after-school centers in Mumbai and Pune. In 2008, Shaheen founded Teach for India with an audacious vision of providing an excellent education to all children across India through building a pipeline of leaders committed to ending educational inequity in India. Today, Teach for India directly impacts approximately 32,000 children across 7 regions in India. Shaheen has also created projects like the Maya musical, the Kids Education Revolution, which explores student leadership, creating platform for student voice and partnership, and TFIX, which is a year-long incubator program for passionate entrepreneurs who are willing to adapt Teach for India's model to their context and region in rural areas. Welcome and thank you for being with us today, Shaheen. As part of our discussion today, we also have with us 2 student leaders who will share their own experiences within the education sector. First, we have Arun Srivastav, who is a graduate from our Oxan Equality Club. He is currently studying in grade 10th in Mount Abu Public School, Delhi. He loves to participate in panel discussion, debate, and interviews so that he can voice his opinion on real-world problems. He's interested in working towards creating a more equal and better society for all. Second, we have Renali Vagmare. She is a student leader from Teach for India. She currently studies in the Apsara Academy in 12th standard. She studied as a TFI student for 6 years. She is currently also a KER revolutionary. She thoroughly enjoys dancing and is currently engaging with psychology as a subject in school and is fascinated by the same. Thank you to all our guest speakers for being here with us today for the discussion. Without further wait, I'm going to hand it over to Shaheen to take forward the conversation. So Shaheen, over to you.
Thank you so much, Shipra, for that very kind introduction. I'm so excited to be here talking about equality. It's something very, very close to my heart. And, the reason why we're doing this with not just me speaking, but actually in conversation with Renali and Aryan is I'm a huge believer that we don't listen to our enough. And often we try to understand topics from a very expert perspective, but not from a very proximate perspective. What does actually feel like, whichever side of inequality you happen to fall on. And so what we're going to do is really, this is going to be a conversation between the three of us. Renali is a student who I have known for many years and is very, very close to my heart. And I best describe her as a of love and joy whenever she walks into a room. And Aryan, I'm meeting for the first time, so I'm absolutely so excited to jump in and hear from you, Aryan. And I know you and Renali are meeting for the first time as well. To get us going, we're gonna watch a short video. Renali, this is not new for you. Aryan, it will be new for you. And at the end of the video, I'd love both of you to kick us off with just answering the question, like, what do you see in this video? As you watch this video, what do you see? And I would love for all of you watching this talk also to answer the same question. Put your answers in chat. What do you see? And really, really look carefully in this video. Shipra, if you could start it off.
Let me know if you have any trouble hearing it.
We are living in a world that needs to change. We have found our voice, we know we have a choice. Our little light is shining bright. We're all made of stars, and the future's ours. Just watch us shine, we may be small, but hear us roar. We can change the world, now watch us soar. We know what we need, it's time for us to lead. We are the ones we are waiting for. We can put our broken world back together. We're diamonds in the rough, we can be wise and tough. You try to bury us, but we are seeds. We won't be shy or scared, we'll arrive prepared. Just watch us shine, we may be small, but hear us roar. We can change the world, now watch us soar. We know what we need, it's time for us to lead. We are the ones we are waiting for. Gonna rise up, rise up, rise up, rise up. We're gonna rise up, rise up, rise up.
We gotta rise up when the times are tough. We gotta rise up when we're out of luck. We gotta rise to the occasion, change the equation, make sure that we help raise education. To every student in the world, this is your creation. What we do now is a gift for generations to come. So don't let them tell you that we're done, cause we're just getting started, so tell them we've just begun. Yeah.
Just watch us shine, we may be small, but hear us roar. We can change the world, now watch us soar. We know what we need, it's time for us to lead. We are the ones we are waiting for. We are the ones we are waiting for.
So, Renali, let's start with you. What did you see? What really touched your heart and your head as you watched that?
As I was watching the video, the first thing that I noticed was that there were children from all around the world, regardless of their gender, regardless of their religion, regardless of their color. Everyone was there. And that was the first thing that stood out to me. Something that stayed with me was the power they hold with themselves, and the fact that they want to bring a change, and the fact that they want to do something for themselves, and the belief that they are going to rise.
Beautiful. Thank you, Renali. Aryan, what?
I think it was my first time watching that video, and it was simply very magical, to be honest. As soon as the song started playing, there was some good vibes. Automatically you will start smiling. I think not just me, but all the viewers. And as Mrinali said, there were children all around the world singing, dancing, and there were small cards and sheets showing what they want to become, what are their aspirations, goals, that they are the future, we want to change. And in the end, there was a rap also, which was really cool, which showed like education, the need, a children, every single children is important, no matter what race and caste. So that touched my heart a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for that. The song always touches my heart as well. And the one line, we are the ones we are waiting for in the face of inequality and inequity, and children around the world experiencing so much inequality. Really, instead of looking outward to say, how does the world solve our problems? We are ones we are waiting for. Maybe actually it's just us and we're waiting for ourselves. And so would love for all of us watching and engaging with this conversation to really think about that, the role that I can play. I often say, especially at this moment in history when there is so much more inequality than 15 months ago, compounded by the pandemic, what is really the greatest role that we can play to shift the inequality in the world? And so we'll keep coming back to that through the conversation. But just to quickly start us off, very basic question. In your own words, what is inequality? Aryan, why don't you start us off? Like, how do you understand it in your own words?
I think for me, inequality is when no one is happy. Happiness is lost. There is no justice. There are no smiles on the face. Whenever inequality comes, there is a sadness that is accompanied by it. And I think that's all about inequality. People are not same. It's as if they are born free, but it is snatched away from them. That is inequality for me, what I understand, that my freedom is taken away.
Yeah, such a beautiful link to how inequality makes feel, right? And so love how you went to the emotion of sadness, that inequality is the loss of freedom, it is the loss of justice, but ultimately there is a feeling that comes with it that is a difficult feeling for people to live with. Renali, what about you? How do you understand it?
The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of the word inequality is that an individual's rights are being taken away. So that is the first thing that comes to my mind. And it's like freedom. You can't give it or you can't take it. Like it's just with you. So being equal and being treated equal is just with you. It's not something that needs to be like segregated or separated and fought for. It's like genuinely how we should be.
Yeah. You know what you say, Renali, reminds me of a conversation I had with a dear friend called Chopra, who's doing some amazing work with children who have intellectual and physical disability. And a lot of us about inclusive classrooms, right? How do we integrate children who have special needs into our classrooms? But Jo once challenged me a lot, and she said, why do we even inclusion? Because inclusion, when you say inclusion, you imply that someone has been excluded, but actually we're all, right? Like if we had that mindset, we are all there. We all exist. We all matter. It is not our job to include. It is our job just to open our eyes and see each person for who they are. So with that, let's jump into our questions. And Renali, I'm going to start with you. I'm going to ask you to be a little bit vulnerable so on this call and share as openly as you can. You grew up in a low-income community in Pune. Talk to us a little bit about the inequalities that you have grown up seeing, not just yourself, but with the children and people around you, and especially talk a little bit about what you've observed in gender inequality and the issues with girls.
So as you asked me this, the first thing that comes to my mind is the uneven spending that I've seen on girls' education. In the lockdown, there was such a stark difference in the amount of money invested in boys' education versus girls, and I think this links with the social norm of "beta hame sambhalenga" and "betiya to sasural sambhalengi," and it gets even scarier if it is a low-income family, because with low-income families, they have only some amount of money allotted for their children's education, and unfortunately girls' education is overlooked. So there are like layers of inequalities there itself. Another thing that comes to my mind, and I've observed as well, is that girls are married off early, and this again makes me think of the social norm, that at the end of the day they have to go to their husband's house and then take care of everyone there, and then why do they have to learn and then study? And I'm also reminded of how we just socially generally don't allow girls to aspire. For example, the occupation that they may choose is limited. Girls needs to be a beautician, boys needs to be an engineer. So how gendered our career options are is also another thing that I've experienced and noticed and seen, not just in my community but also in my family, and that is something that I want to put out. Another thing that thing that I notice is how I'm not saying that everyone in my community marries their girls off, because that's not true. I study, I do, and so many people in my community also study who are girls, but many families still expect their children, their girls especially, to complete all the household chores, and this again connects back to the gendered based societal responsibilities we all form. So many things come to my mind when I think of inequalities.
Yeah, and Renali, as a young person, and expand this beyond being a girl right now, but if you live in a low-income community in India today, what are some of the challenges you face in maximizing your own potential?
The first thing that stops me from doing something is money. Like, until and unless people in my house do not have enough nutrition, enough food at home, it's really hard to go outside. So it's really hard to do something else than fulfilling our basic needs. And it's not just the case with me, it's the case with so many children in my community. That is the first thing that happens. Secondly, it's also the area in which I am brought up in. um, Somehow, like generally people start to believe that there is only so much that we can do. Like it's very hard for us to push our potentials up and see how much we can achieve, because there's this social norm and social belief that children from poor income families or people from poor income families can do only so much. They can aspire only so much. They have the potential to do only so much. So that is another thing that blocks uh, the
Yeah.
success path.
I mean, it's beautiful. Like I'm remembering, often when we speak outside at Teach for India, we talk about the work that we do and we showcase our students. The audience's reactions are very, oh my gosh, wow, like that child can speak in English. Oh my gosh, that child is going to college. And actually, when you think about it, why are we surprised? We would never think about that for our own kids at home. We would just assume that, of course, they're going to go to college. Of course, they're going to be proficient in English. And so what I love about what you said is at the base of inequality, of course, are resources. And I think calling money is a huge one. It's a huge a liability in terms of opportunity. But you also talked about mindsets, right? Like, how can we shift the expectations we have of people, the mindsets around inequality? And I think that was very, very powerful. And coming to you, and I want you to think a little bit about the impact of the pandemic and talk to us a little bit about how do you think the children of India in the last 16 months, how has inequality shifted, changed? And both a little bit about your own personal challenges over the course of the pandemic, but also as you think more broadly about India's children, what are some of the inequalities you have seen unfold with girls and with other children as well?
The first thing that I personally feel from my experience, it was really difficult. Suddenly, from the pandemic situation, offline classes to online classes, and then even though it was a challenge for me, but there was some quirks, some sort of advantages to explore the technical world. Become a little techno savvy, to be honest, and learn new skills. But even though it was true for me, it was outweighed somewhere by the often exhausting and tiring online classes. Moreover, not just me, but all the students across India and across the world, there was from some to zero interaction with friends. Especially in my age, I think in teenage, friends are very important. Someone you can share things with that not even your family you might not share with. But a friend is very necessary, and it was cut off. Moreover, with the stress of new exam patterns, syllabus was cut. Even sometimes it wasn't sure if board will happen or not. So everyone was a lot of stress. But to be honest, these things that I have said is the problem, challenges that I have faced, or the students and the people who I know around me. To be honest, from where I stand, it might be very difficult to even grasp what other students or other children in general might have been facing. The opportunities that I have might not be available to them. For them, offline classes, going to school was everything. Take the books, take a bag and a pen, and go to school and study. But in online, there's a huge inequality, I feel. Some people do not have the technology, Wi Fi, or the appropriate know how to use them. So for them, too, there was a complete full stop in education. For them, everything was ruined. And especially for girls, people thought if it is online, what would happen? Nothing much. So why not get her either married off or engage her in some sort of work, child labor to be honest. Any work possible so that there is some income to the family. And few people opted it for by themselves that I have to support the family. They ignored education. Their psychology is difficult to understand for us. So my challenges, they were something that can be dealt with. I can deal with it. But the challenges that overall students and kids faced in India, I can't even imagine them. To be honest, I can only try. But the challenges that they faced is too agonizing and too cruel.
Yeah, that's just such a beautiful overview, Aryan, and also just like so much empathy and compassion. And you shared that point that, like, while of course for you also, for every single child in this country, it's been challenging and there's been isolation, challenges adapting to online learning. But I love the way you expanded it beyond yourself to say, but there are kids who don't even have us. There are kids who've been pushed into poverty. There are kids who've been exposed to violence, and higher levels of child marriage. And just to bring a little bit of those numbers to the audience, actually, 64% of Indian children do not have access to online learning. So while we sit in these panels and debate whether online learning is engaging or not engaging, most of the country's children don't even have of any kind of online learning. So when we say schools have been shut for 16 months, it essentially means that many of them have had absolutely no learning for 16 months. You talked a little bit about poverty and challenges. Double the number of Indian families have been pushed into poverty in the last 18 months. You talked about child marriage. When you look at, the National Child Hotline, 1098, which I'm sure most people listening in know, a child line hotline that you can call if you see any child in danger or distress. The number of calls they received from children doubled in the pandemic, which means exposure to violence, to trauma is just much, much higher. And, we could go on and on with those numbers. The inequality was pre-pandemic, but when you look at what happened over the pandemic, it's just increased much, much more. So that's a little bit of the truth. I want to talk a little bit about, like, what in your mind is the hope? And Renali, maybe you can share a little bit. I know we've had a couple of conversations through the pandemic as well, and I know you've gone through your own roller coaster of ups and downs. But what is the hope? What is the opportunity in this time for inequality to play a role as a student?
If I've understood your question correctly, there is students are the key stakeholders of schools, and it's important for us to listen to them and teach them how they want to learn and not just go with the traditional ways. And students can actually come out as leaders. They can voice their opinions up on different levels. It doesn't necessarily has to be on an online mode. And the fact that we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we still continue to live. A tomorrow is coming is the only hope that at least I am motivated with. And if we keep that in mind, and if we as students come up and voice our opinions, to work for ourselves and not fight, but actually work for ourselves, I think that would help us tackle some of the inequalities we face.
Yeah. And Renali, if I were to push you a little bit more, on education and say, never before have we so clearly seen, as we did in the pandemic, the failure of education, right? I remember one point in the year, a student telling me, oh my gosh, Didi, how crazy is it that just because we don't have access to four walls, learning stops? I mean, think about that, right? Like we've put all of our dreams, our future in the four walls of a classroom. So if you were to say, okay, no, we don't want the stuff that doesn't work in education. We want to use the pandemic as a way to really reimagine education. What would you change in education?
I love this question. It makes me think of how differently we can learn the traditional subjects that we do in the school, like how we can learn math in music, how we can learn maths by playing a football game or a basketball game, learn probabilities, I don't know what, learn angles, so many things. So it makes me think of all of that, and it is beyond those four walls in the classroom. And if we were to do something differently and reimagine our education, and I think the pandemic has just given us the opportunity to do that further, we could do so much more. We could also have community of inquiry. It's like young people come together, sit in a circle, and talk about a problem they see and notice and they hold close to in their community. And then they'll talk about what is something that is troubling them. So I think that helps us look at different perspectives. Um, I'm sorry, give me a moment.
Aryan, let's go to you and then we'll bring Renali back. But same question, like what is the opportunity you've seen in the pandemic, and specifically what is the opportunity for education?
Yes, ma'am. I think the opportunity for all of us that this online classes and pandemic in general have proposed to the students is that everyone is trying to find a little more about whatever is happening. People are getting inquisitive, very curious. To be honest, from my perspective, and as per I have seen, students have started showing a lot of interest in technology, technical things, AI, machine learning, coding, and even in our education system, the recent changes, coding was inculcated with these reasons. So online classes have brought that. And moreover, the one thing that I've seen is that classes, even though online, have difficulties. Children aren't able to study well. Students are facing issues, network issues, but still, everyone has developed a solidarity, moral ethics, skills that no matter what happens, we are in this together. We will stand by each other and do whatever it takes to just study and educate. I think with all the problems and issues, don't you think it's amazing that we are still connected through this online mode? The two batches of this year who have given, one has given board exams, one hasn't, but yet they have come so far, got to next level, got to another class. The exposure, for example, these interview sessions and discussions, maybe if someone was in Mumbai, someone was in Delhi or Pune, I don't think it would have been easier. But students have got a chance to voice their opinion through this. The students who didn't speak in the offline classes because of, I don't know, shyness, or they got conscious, they have an opportunity to sit in front of the laptop, just voice their opinion and speak their minds out. So I think that's what online classes have brought for all of us, which is exceptional.
Yeah, I mean, it's wonderful to hear you share that. And one thing I wanted to point out, when we see the great inequality in the world, my single answer to is we need leadership committed to ending it, right? I mean, I'll say that again, right? There are many, many ways, but unless we have people like you, Aryan, you, Renali, who stand up and say, wait a minute, this has to change, and we're going to figure out how to change it. Unless we have committed to that, it's not going to change. And I think what I loved in what you shared, Aryan, was a real search for what is working, like and that's one thing I feel is so critical to ending inequality. Like, it's so easy for all of us, right? We pick up our phones in the morning and we're just overwhelmed with bad news. It just feels like every day the world is falling apart. How do you as a leader step back and stay optimistic? I think is a really, really, really important thing. We need leaders who are looking at data around them, who are facing and confronting the truth, but who always have a little bit more hope than they do truth. And I'd love to ask you that question. Like, what keeps both of you hopeful? What keeps you hopeful? When you think of the inequality in the world, all the problems in the world, the problems you may be going through as well, what keeps you hopeful? Renali, why don't you?
So I have had this conversation many a times with so many teachers that there is so much going on, and I feel so strongly for most of the things. How do I, like, it makes me very uneasy. So how do I stop feeling this uneasiness and tell myself that it's okay and there is only so much that you can do? And through those conversations, I remember someone telling me that I need to pick my battles up, and that pushed me to understand that whatever is under my locus of control, there is only so much that I can do. And if I'm doing something, even in my family, like with my sister, with my parents, that is a lot, like a lot. It's not like you're not doing, you being a leader does not have to be something like great. You don't have to like do it with 1,000 people. Being a leader is standing up for yourself and doing something that, even if it is very small, even if, when I say that, oh my god, gender inequality, only women have to do all the household work, but then I'm going home and not helping my mother cook food when she actually doesn't like to cook food, then that's not me being a leader. If I can do that also, that's, it keeps me happy and it keeps me going. It tells me that I am doing something, like I don't, and it gives me hope that, okay, like I won't be able to, maybe I won't be able to bring so much of impact, but whatever I can do right now, I am taking small steps, and that gives me hope.
Yeah, I have so many thoughts as you speak, Renali. You know, I mean, I think one really big thing that I want to underline that you said is that maybe our greatest role is doing really things. You know, we're all looking to solve the big thing. I know when I was your age, I genuinely believed that I could change the world. You know, like that's what I believed. And then I older, a little bit wiser, and I said, no, the world's inequalities, the world's problems are too big. Maybe I can change India. And then I said, okay, no, maybe Mumbai, where I live. And now today, I know change my two daughters at home, right? So I think that the idea that really you need to change yourself. You can talk about gender equality, but are you going home and helping your mother? That's a very, very powerful idea. The other thing is something I recently learned. I don't know, you know, all of us are familiar with IQ, which is intellectual quotient. And many of us are increasingly talking about EQ, which is emotional quotient. But do either of you know what's CQ? Any idea?
Compassion quotient.
Compassion quotient. And the reason that up is because more and more now what researchers are saying is that empathy is not enough. It's not enough just to feel someone's pain, because actually if you stop there, you will, Renali, you mentioned this, right? You will get more and more overwhelmed, more and more burned out. If you have emotional quotient and compassion quotient, you focus your mind on what little things can I do to make something better? And when you ask yourself that, what are little acts of kindness, little things I can do to make the world a little bit more equal around me, that is liberating. That is not depleting, gives you energy. And so, yeah, very, very beautiful insights and nuggets of wisdom, I think Mrinal said. Same question, Aryan, over to you.
I think, ma'am, the hope for me is that knowing people like Munaliti, YLAC, TFI, that there are people who are working with such organizations and leading them towards a better future. That is my single hope. Moreover, I think even if out of 5 people, only 2 are working towards it, at least something is better than nothing, I believe. Those 2 can create an influence that can influence the rest of the 3 people, and that is a complete 5. The other hope is that humanity itself. We have an eternal question: what are we, evil or good? After seeing so many things, I can say that 110% we are good. I mean, just look at it. India, all over the world, people like us, people like you, ma'am, all of us are working towards something. I know it's difficult, but we have achieved so many things over the time, which takes me a little back to the history with the revolutions, setting up of democracy. If we were able to achieve something like that, for even for a short period of time, there was an equality between people. Why is it not possible right now? The hope is that people have understanding. As you said, CQ, I didn't know that, but that is another hope for me now. People are not just about intelligence now, but emotions, compassion, empathy. I think that's my hope, that no matter what happens, someone will do, and not just someone, me understanding this is the single hope that I can do it. Everyone is in this together, everyone faces problems. The only thing is, we need to understand and move on towards a better future, with not just one step, but 100 people taking one step together.
Yeah. And I just again want to headline, your hope is people and humanity. And I think in today's world, we talk, as we should, a lot about individual identity, a lot about diversity, a lot about our differences and celebrating our differences. What I think perhaps we don't talk enough about is our common humanity. The fact that it doesn't matter where in the world you are, what you are, everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants freedom. Everyone. And I think the more we think and understand our shared humanity, the faster we will accelerate towards a world where all of us unleash our potential. I was myself, as you both were sharing, what do I think, where does my hope come from? And I think, my hope comes from children. It really does. Like, I think we often hear this idea, the children are the future. One of my friends one day told me, we've got it all wrong. The children are not the future. The children are the present, right? It is this moment that matters. It is what you say, what you do, what you don't say, what you don't do in this moment that is going to change the world. And it was something you said, Aryan, made me think that some in our history, we took action that has led to the world being the way it is today, right? That wasn't an accident. That was like many of us working together to good and not so good things that have landed the world where it is today, with all of its good and all of its not so good. And the opportunity in that idea is that what we today, and again, Renali, to borrow from what you said, the little things that we do today are collectively going to determine where the world is in the future. And so today, for anyone listening on this call, don't be telling yourself like, I will be a leader in the future and I will have impact in the future. Like, the real question is, what are you doing in this moment for people right around you today? One of my friends once told me India is a magical place in that way, because if you walk a city block in India, you literally have 50 opportunities to help, right? That's the nature of India. And the real question is, how often do you stop to help? And how often do you even see the need to help? And whatever your answer is, can you push yourself a little bit more? So with that, we're going to come into a rapid fire round, and I'm going to ask both of you questions you can't think. Okay, so top of mind, one line answers to these questions. And the first one, Aryan, we'll ask. You can go first, and then Renali, you follow right after him. Okay. What is the purpose of education?
To form equality and opportunities.
Equality and opportunity. Renali?
To build ourselves as individuals.
To build us as individuals. Beautiful. If you had to choose the most important thing to learn in school, what would it be? Renali, you.
To understand ourselves better.
To understand ourselves better. Aryan?
Emotions.
Emotions. Fascinating, right? And you think about that, and you think about actual school day, and how much time do we spend learning content and knowledge versus building our emotional intelligence, and our compassion quotient is a part of the equation at all. Okay, Aryan, to you first this time. If you had to choose exams or no exams, and why?
I think I will go with no exams, probably. The reason for me, very simple, is that sometimes exams create a lot of competition. There have been cases. I think they can be a better solution to, instead of having exams.
Yeah.
That is what I think.
Beautiful. And what I love answer also is that competition fuels inequity, right? And inequality. And so maybe really exams are a starting point for some of that. Renali, exams or no exams?
Can I go for semi-exams? Because if we don't have exams, how are we going to assess ourselves? How are we going to check how are we improving? Are we not? If we are improving, if you're not, how much can we do? How much can we push ourselves? Can I go for semi-exams?
Yeah, of course. Of course, there are no rules here at all. Great. Renali, you first this time. Online school or in-person school?
In person. In person.
And why?
There is no, I can't see, feel, touch. Like, I can't, it's so hard. Like, I don't know how to explain it, but I don't have that human touch. Like, I can't study online.
Beautiful. Aryan?
In person, of course.
In person.
The chalks, the smell of it, the students coming, rushing, even someone is pushed, but sometimes we even help them. I think that feeling is better than anything you do.
Yeah. And my answer, it's not a fair answer because I'm not making a choice, but I really like envision a blended learning world where every child has access to technology, and where as educators, we're asking ourselves, what is best done in person, best enabled through technology? And if every child could have a blend, then your education also wouldn't be limited just by the teacher who happens to be in your, but the world would be open to you. Okay, Aryan, you first. One thing you'd want schools to give to every child across India?
One thing that I want every school to give.
Yeah, like if schools could deliver on one thing for every child.
Books. Even
Books
if they
for all.
can't go to school, at least books are there.
Okay, Renali?
Now this is very vague, like, but I'll just share it. I want every school to give access to education, but with quality of education. Now, it's so hard to define quality of education because it is very subjective. But yeah, like I want every child to have access to education, good
Beautiful.
quality education.
Beautiful. Last question, Aryan, to you first. If you were the new HRD minister in charge of education across the country, what is the first thing you'd do?
I will probably remove boards at 12th because already students are giving competitive exams, IIT, NEET, JEE. I think that is enough sometimes. People can take a rest. They can just prepare what they want to and achieve. That's the first thing I will do.
Awesome.
I'll call them to my office. I'll speak with them, ask them how they are doing, what they're learning, if they enjoy that, and then see what I can do because I don't know how.
Fabulous. Love that answer. I love that answer. A bonus question that I just thought of. If you were the Prime Minister of India and your important job was to end inequality in India, what would you do? Aryan, to you first.
If I were the Prime Minister and to end inequality, I think I will probably make schools all government funded, so that every teacher will get the pay also, and every family can also afford to send the children to school. That's the thing I will do. Then future generation will take up the torch for me, and then I will see. Rest back and watch.
Love that. Love that. Yeah. Mrinali?
I will hold community of inquiry sessions in all the cities of India where people would come together and just talk, like first start just talking about it, because I feel like there are so many people who don't even know that inequality exists in like layers. And when we start talking, I think that's when people will start feeling, and then I know they will start doing something for it by themselves. Like I don't have to like make them do something.
I love that. Mrinali, the power of dialogue. I mean, I think this conversation has been a beautiful example of that. You and Aryan from different parts of the country, different backgrounds, different perspectives and opinions, but just coming together to really listen to each other, to learn from each other, to talk to each other. There is huge power in that. I often feel if you grow up as friends, differences just evaporate, right? And you start caring for the people around you. So how can we bring children of very different backgrounds together to talk, and people of very different backgrounds together to talk and dialogue? Any last thing you would like to say to the audience about inequality? Anything at all? Renali, you first.
I would like to share an experience, a learning from an experience is that if you're not able to do a lot, it's okay. Like it's okay if you can't do a lot, like how I mentioned earlier as well. Whatever you can do it. And when I say we need dialogue, it's not just like we can't just speak about it, we also have to act upon it. So don't just speak about it. If you start speaking about it, yes, that's it.
Love it. Such a powerful thought, right? Changing everything or doing huge things, but whatever you can do, just do it. Whatever you can do it. Don't think too much about it, just start doing. That will lead you to the next step. Aryan, what about you?
I think my message to all the viewers, as Mrinali said, they have to do something. But also what I want is do that in such a way that everyone feels included and no one feels either I am being left out or I'm being treated specially. Like, ma'am, you gave that example of disabled children or special children. Why do we have to add that word? They are in the end children, you know. I want the people right now to help children more. Adults, I think they can handle a little bit of things by themselves, but I want them to support children, not special children, not disabled children, but children only.
So beautiful. I just want to thank you both. My heart is full. As always, best thing in the world ever is really young people and your hopes and your commitment and conviction to make the world better, to end inequality. So many pearls of absolute wisdom in your answers and thoughts. So thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Shipra.
Thank you so much, Shaheen, Aryan, and Renali. I think this was a fantastic conversation. Before we begin, I think one very common question that is coming up from our students is what to do when you see inequality happening in front of you. And I think let me reframe it a little bit. And because it's a very common question that a lot of our students are asking, but according to you, what is the role of children in fighting inequality and how can they do it? Because I think as young change makers, sometimes we get so overwhelmed with the world. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed with the inequalities around us that even though we want to take action, sometimes it just feels hard, right? So what is that one advice you would give to them in their journey towards being change makers?
Aryan, you want to start us off, and then Renali, and then I'll add my own thoughts as well.
I think my message to them would be that do not feel pressured or you have to definitely do something extraordinary. You know, actually, there was a case at my school. One student approached me. I want to do this here, but I just can't see myself doing that, or people are getting upset from it. I think what I gave that child, the advice I want to give to all is that do not feel pressure. It's all about you. You were born free. You have the freedom to do anything as long as you want and you feel that it's correct. I want them to understand that action is needed and you are children. You don't have to worry that much. When you reach such an age, I just want you to treat everyone like a friend, and that way, equality, inequality, nothing will exist. Everything will be equal.
Renali?
If I was in your case and if I would see something happening in front of me, like an inequality, for example, let's say I see some of my relatives beating my cousins just because of not following the gendered roles or responsibilities, then the first thing that I should think is, how am I feeling at that point of time? If I'm just like shocked, I'm just like frozen, it's okay, just accept it. If I'm like furious, angry, I can't just like go and stop. Like, obviously I can just go and stop, but I can't like in anger go out and say कि नहीं अभी ये घर छोड़ के जाने वाली है मेरे साथ चलो. I can't do that. But what I can do is giving more information. So it's related to a term called schemas. Schemas are buckets of information in your brain, how you process information, and then your whatever information you get, you categorize them into buckets, and that's how you form your beliefs. So if you see inequality, give them more knowledge, give them more information. For example, if in your family girls aren't allowed to play sports, so give your parents examples of women leaders in sports, instead of like getting angry and like, no abhi main ye bhi karungi, ye bhi karungi, ye bhi karungi, which is, I'm not saying that's not good, it's good, but it may not go with the approach of love and compassion. So whatever you do with the approach of love and compassion and give more information.
I'm just going to build on that, Renali. I started my work when I was 18, my first organization, and I didn't start it to be a big organization. I just started it because I wanted to be with children and teach them and do a little bit. And so my advice would be like, just start with the first step. It doesn't have to be a huge step. You don't have to have the whole picture figured out, but do it with love. And I do want to re-emphasize what Renali said. We don't need more anger in the world. There are lots of causes to fight for, but we don't need more fighters. We need people who put love and positivity and joy into the world. And I'll share a really quick incident that happened a few years ago. I was driving down a crowded street, and I saw the thing that pains my heart the most. I saw a woman on the road beating her young child. She was bathing the child must have been crying, and she had a stick and this child. And this is the kind of thing when Renali said, stop, understand your feeling. For me, there was a lot of anger. And my first reaction was, let me go and like, yes, from happening. But somehow instead of that, I went over to that woman. The child was sobbing, the woman was screaming, and I just put my arm around the woman and I just said, are you okay? And just those words, are you okay? The woman sat down, she started sobbing, started apologizing. She shared how difficult, how much frustration she had. And I thought, such a small, counterintuitive thing. Maybe when people are the most angry, when people are the lowest, when they have fallen the most, what they need us to do is show them love. And that is what will shift them, maybe a little bit slower, but in a more sustainable way. So take one step at a time. See lots of other examples of what students are. If you just go to the KR website, even you'll find many, many examples of students that are really working towards an array of different causes, and you'll see what you can act.
Thank you so much for sharing your views on that. And I think it's very important. And like you said, no step is big or small. You just have to begin. And I think most of our students here have already began the journey by questioning and wanting to do something about it, right? I think that want to take action is in itself such a big hope for me personally. So I think you asked this question to Aryan and Renali, what brings you hope? And for me, like you said, these children are hope, right? The fact that these children are engaging, the fact that children today are standing up for themselves and for those around them, and they want to make a change is big enough hope for me already. So thank you so much. And on that note, I think we will end the seminar today. But thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, Shaheen, Renali, and Aryan. You have been so insightful, and I have loved the emotions you have brought into this. It has been great interacting with you, and I'm sure our students have taken away a lot of insights today, a lot of meaningful insights today. So thank you so much. And to all our students who are watching, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Thank you for engaging with us, and we hope to see you soon within our equality clubs. With that, we will come to an end. If you have any questions for us, you can reach out to YLAC at office@theyylacproject.com. I'm also going to share a slide which has our social media information. You can always reach out to us there as well. And with that, thank you so much for being a part of today's session.